Alright, after I rewatched my last video and realized how bad it is, I also realized how I failed to take a clearer approach in my script. Persona 4, both the animation and the game, has been a conflicted experience for me. I like the character designs, the music, and even their stylized implementation. I'd go a step further and say that as an adaptation, Persona 4, the animation, is a pretty good one. However, the plot becomes an asinine contrivance full of plot holes, and it slowly begins to fracture and unravel the coherence of the story in an unignorable fashion. Since, as I said before, this doesn't happen until the latter half of the show, I won't expound on these points in their totality yet. What I can do, however, is give a glimpse of where these incipient foils begin to bud. Episode 3 begins with a false alarm about Yukiko going missing. Yosuke gets kicked in the balls, and then Yukiko actually does go missing and appears on the Midnight Channel. Okay, first off, it's made explicitly clear that people, and especially high schoolers, watch the Midnight Channel, if I recall correctly, in both the game and the show.
Midnight Channel? Man, that Yamano lady is like the woman of my dreams.
So shouldn't their classmates see this? Shouldn't this have a bigger impact on them socially? Shouldn't someone ask what's going on? Already from episode 3, the show begins to tear me a little bit further from the world as a coherent setting. But this is sort of minor for now. Chie and the gang barge into the TV and into the environment created by Yukiko's shadow, and Chie confronts her own shadow, it transforms, yada yada yada. I want to take a minute to distinguish the ways the animation differs from the game content. It typically adds simplistic scenes to convey the experiences of the characters, to further visualize a character's emotions. This begins most notably with episode 3, an illusion created by Chie's shadow. Chie has an identity crisis. She is lost amid her inner thoughts, symbolized by masks of her face, and almost certainly lifted from Carl Jung's quote about personas being a kind of social mask. And I do like this scene, as well as most of the animation scenes that aren't strictly following the source material. Chie is isolated, and her thoughts are turned inward, and she's almost at the point of becoming one of the masks. And I like the scene itself. I like the direction, i.e. her being reduced to a mere shell of herself, and I like the idea as a concept. But however, the scene is uninteresting and kind of fucking stupid. And I don't mean visually or conceptually uninteresting. I mean contextually uninteresting and nonsensical. I could see why a shadow would be motivated to egg on a character until they are rejected. A shadow gains separation and autonomy and agency in the process. But why would it continue to do so? Why would the shadow continually repeat that it is the true character, and then get angry when said character does accept these underlying thoughts? The shadow continuously emphasizes these emotions. But what if the character just broke down and acknowledged them? I mean, that's basically what the illusion was trying to accomplish, wasn't it? So why does it matter if the character comes to accept themselves? If Chie in this case, accepted these thoughts, then wouldn't that be the same thing to some degree? Anyway, they beat the shadow. Oh, and Chie gets her own Digimon. The next scene takes place at Junes for some fucking reason, and it breaks the urgency of the story. They are rushed in because they thought Yukiko was in danger, and then they leave for no explained reason. Now this is a failure on the part of the animation, and to some degree the source material as well. In the game it was explained that shadows only attack people with personas or whoever resides in the TV when the fog clears, and the real world becomes foggy. Except that the character's own shadows, once transformed, become hostile. And don't give me the crap that this isn't the case, because in episode 2, Yosuke's shadow tried to attack him. So there's no guarantee that the character's own shadows won't kill them. I'll contrast Chie's scene by talking about a scene that I actually like, Yukiko's brief flashback in episode 4. I'll point out the flaw that this is obviously spoon-feeding the audience with a simplistically sappy scene designed to endear Yukiko to the audience. But the scene has a goal, and the direction of the scene and its execution are in service of this goal. It does a lot with very little. Yukiko doesn't express herself often. The scene emphasizes her isolation, that much of her life consists of working at her family's inn. The bird she cares for is the only available outlet because she can't socialize with Chie after school due to work. The scene shows that Chie is her only real friend. While I dislike the use of a caged bird as a metaphor for Yukiko because of the excessive overuse of this imagery. However, I do like how small the problem is. Yukiko's life feels more meaningful and satisfying because of a tiny pet, which she then loses. Why bother bringing up such a small issue like this? It seems fairly trivial, but meaningful to Yukiko. The bird didn't even die, it just flew away. The loss Yukiko feels isn't commensurate with the situation, but in a good way. The banality of work and the little time she does have for her enjoyment amplify her loss. Her avenues for comfort and enjoyment are narrow, so something minor feels disproportionately large because it's simply all she has. To feel distraught over something minor and to be aware of how minor something like this is makes conveying genuine emotion unrelatable. It doesn't seem worth bringing up in casual conversation, which is why she doesn't tell Chie. It's a minor problem, and I know I'm emphasizing this point a lot, but even a minor rift in understanding can feel alienating, and this scene does do this. Also, they fight Yukiko Shadow. Hey, what happened to the ash/suit that you had on your face? Remember, you're giving a heartfelt speech, and okay, never mind. Hey, what did the kidnapper's face look like? Did you know who it was? Oh, well, I don't really remember. Cool. I'm sure that isn't indicative of a pattern. I'm sure it'll be revealed, solved, or explained. It won't just be forgotten and left unexplained because someone didn't just say, fuck it, they forget shit. Hey, there's a simple idea. How about people who fall into the TV for the first time suffer some kind of brief memory loss / amnesia? For at least a few minutes or so, or even shortly after the incident for a bit. That would pretty much be a blanket idea that would solve a problem. Really, you only have to show Chie and Yosuke fainting when they first enter the TV in the first episode. Pretty much. Maybe Yu collapses in the first episode as well? I mean, he had a migraine, so just more of that into a greater degree? Look, this is a point I'm bringing up now because so much of the story could have been fixed with minimal effort, and it irks me. It's a derivative work of a video game. They just added a scene and a story about Yukiko's bird that didn't have a scene in the game. It's the same with Chie in episode 3. Look, you don't need to go Full Metal Alchemist 2003 with the adaptation going in a completely different direction than the source material. But one of the possible benefits of an adaptation is artistic leeway, and it can yield different results. It wouldn't even be used to change a fundamental or key detail that would distort the other key points of the narrative. Fixing the plot holes properly would only make the viewer's experience that much smoother if done correctly. Now on to episode 5. I actually like episode 5. Pretty much my favorite one-off episode. Now you might be asking, why isn't an episode that is essentially a slice of life episode pretty much your favorite episode? The simple answer is that the main character finally displays some personality. It's a nice little one-off that passes as an episode, and yes, it has its faults. Oh, you make origami cranes! You're not like the other guys at school. Okay. Generic guy talk.
She's probably flirting with a bunch of guys right now.
Wait, why did I say this was my favorite episode? Hey, listen, I know this isn't easy. Yeah, that's the right thing to say. Look, I probably made this decision while drunk, and I'm just glad that the main character had some emotion and was displaying some measure of humanity, because he passes as a textbook example of the uncanny valley. The episode is a reversal of the adaptation's greatest flaw, the main character's lack of humanity. It's a slice-of-life episode that functions as such with lightened tropes that might function like low levels of entertainment television. That's kind of true. It is what it is, and functions as such and doesn't pretend to be anything else. Look, episode 5 is not perfect, and I'm well aware of the flaws. It is superficial, and you can call it superficial and superfluous, and it's a legitimate criticism, and possibly the only one you care about as a viewer. But a superfluous episode can be a break, a retreat of sorts from the main narrative, either as a choice of pacing or possibly just filler, without compromising the plot. It's just a break from everything else, and that's okay, and it might even be appropriate for a story that unfolds over the entirety of a year. And functions as such and doesn't pretend to be anything else. And functions as such and doesn't pretend to be anything else.
Betsy? Betsy? Here we go! Hi! Hi, Lacey on At your Juness.
Predictable, because the plot is driving the story forward. So rather
Big try!